guys, what's going on? Bobby here, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the ATA Network podcast. Today, we've got a very, very special guest to the show. This guy he's been there ever since the start of my racing career, and I'm going back all the way to the first time that I ever competed in the iDrive racing series at the Gateway Kartplex. Went out and raced. I actually got a podium in my first ever race at the Gateway Kartplex, and I get off the track and I share in this moment with one of the fellow racers of, hey, you're looking pretty good out there. And I, as a shy self that I was actually back then, I was like, yeah, thank you, kind sir. And who would have known just how far I would have went with this friend of mine? You're looking at 6 years since that moment, and how a crazy 6 years it has been. Went on from battling the guy out for the iDrive championship, being teammates with him in the Ignite series, just creating content together for his channel and my channel, and being able to share some really cool moments with him, and to be able to race against him, call him a friend, hang out with him. And all the stuff that we'll dive into in this show is going to be really cool. And to be honest, this is actually a return podcast guest. He was in the original ATA podcast before it was the ATA Network podcast. So he was even pre-season 1 of the show, and it's very exciting to have him on. Like I said, a teammate, a competitor, but most importantly, my best friend. Welcome to the show, to the ATA Network podcast, that is, Brenden Lauer.
Oh my God, that was the sweetest introduction, Bobby. I'm your best friend. Do you mean it?
The title goes between you and Zagaitis. It just depends on which one of you guys is willing to sacrifice 4 or 5 days to go film me in a Formula car.
So you're saying if I can, do something to him and, he's not around anymore, then I just kind of get that to myself then.
Yeah, I guess you take the title. It's funny. It's weird. I went back and I listened to that podcast episode we did, and that was back in November of 2016. It was right after we both competed in the iDrive Championship when Colin Predith won. And, it was funny. I kind of, you introduced yourself as the vice president of ATA Network, and I go back to the first episode I did with Zagaitis in this return season, and I kind of called him the vice president. So it's funny. I've seen a little bit of a shared role between you guys. So, but yeah, seriously though, welcome to the show, and thanks for being such a big part of my life, a big part of my racing career.
Well, I mean, you're absolutely a guy that deserves it. And I'm glad that you've been so appreciative. I don't feel like I've done all that much, but you seem to think that I've done a lot. So there's that. I did want to say about earlier, do not call it 6 years. Don't say that I've known you for 6 years. Don't make my life flash by that quick, please. That was in fall of 2016. It is spring of 2022.
Oh,
so we're
me.
not quite there yet. Let me hold on a little bit longer, okay?
It's getting close, man. And you can go back and listen to those old shows. I believe they're actually still publicly out there on the channel. But like I mentioned, my first time ever meeting you was at that iDrive race, and I saw your YouTube videos prior to me coming out and doing iDrive, and that I kind of credit that to being the reason that I came out and did iDrive. And obviously I credit iDrive being, one of the biggest reasons that I've been able to do all the crazy things that I've done to this point. So I definitely give you, whatever it's worth, some portion of credit for everything that's happened. But, I just want to kind of throw it back. We haven't really talked too much about it, apparently, on content as far as that 2017 season, although I feel like we have. But for those listeners that don't know, I kind of want to go back and cover that. So we met each other in 2016, was able to race each other throughout 2016. Neither one of us actually ended up winning that championship in 16, actually being Colin Predith, like I mentioned. But you actually had a fighting chance that race day, but unfortunately missed out on that Ignite Series scholarship. So we ended up racing out each other pretty hard for that 2017 championship. We traded, the championships between the spring series and the fall season. I picked up the first place spot in the spring. You picked up first place in the fall. So when it came down to that shootout, man, we really didn't know who was going to walk away with it. What were some of the highlights you remember of that 2017 season, and walk me through what that shootout was like for you that year?
Well, I do want to say that shootout to this day is like probably the best mix of like pressure and fun that I've ever felt in any sort of racing environment. But I'm not going to get to that yet. You gotta wait for that. You gotta listen to the podcast a little bit longer. But the 2017 season of iDrive, I actually remember with like better detail than any season I ever did of Ignite, just because of how fiercely competitive it was, and I was, and just how fun the entire thing was. Because that's really when like our friend group started to build, and like it felt like I got really close to all you guys. So spring season, you were dominant, and I couldn't quite believe it because like you were pretty fast off the start in 2016, but I was still like, oh, he's still learning. Like I've still got control here. And then you just dusted me, dude. You just dusted everyone in spring, and that really pushed me to like up my game. I was looking at your GoPro and my GoPro and looking at like timesheets and everything and trying to find some sort of edge. I don't know if I've ever been in like a competitive mindset that was that fierce as I was
Hmm.
back in 2017, and it was all because you pushed me and everyone else to have to be that if we wanted to keep up. And I think really the fall, like which of us was technically, like, you can't measure skill really, it's too vague. But I think I really benefited from the fall series. We had to keep splitting up the races. There were too many racers every single night, so we would always split the field in half, and most of the time I ended up not having to race you, and that
Hmm.
made life so much easier. So I will attribute a decent amount of why I got the fall series to the fact that I didn't have to race you like even half the time.
Well, let me butt in here real quick. How many race wins did you actually end up getting in a row in the fall season? I think it's like the most wins in a row that they've ever seen in the iDrive series.
I think it was like, well, it was like 7 or 8.
It was something incredible. It was I don't like I literally I don't go to Kartplex and I don't have that, history recollection that I do of when we were racing back then,
Mhm.
but it would be very impressive to see anyone be able to pull that same feat. Like you were just every time you'd go out, you were dominant. And whether it was something mentally in my head that season or if I just ran into bad luck, I think it was a combination of both. And obviously seeing you win all of these races, that definitely had a factor in kind of my decline throughout that fall season. But continue on.
I actually don't know if you've ever mentioned that to me, that I had any effect on you for that, because you had effect on me in the beginning of that year. See how we like play off of each other in this cute way where we always wanted to beat the other guy, but we're all buddies at the end of the day. God, we're adorable. Anyway, it was competitive, and I'm guessing that everyone felt it, and it really kind of carried over to the shootout, and that's probably why the shootout was so tense. It wasn't just like we've got this go-kart on the line that can take us further down some sort of racing career into the future, but we already had this pre-established like comparisons to each other where we, even though we were really good friends, we really wanted to be the friend that was faster than the other friend.
Hmm.
So even if there wasn't a cart on the line, like whoever ended up taking home the title of champion that year, it was going to feel like a monumental personal thing, regardless of any monetary or like physical reward that was given out.
Well, and I think the other cool thing about, me and you going into that, and I'm trying to find up the stats just for my reference of it, but me and you were practically untouchable compared to the rest of the field. Like it was just me and you, and I attribute that to obviously our skill, but also our weight. And that's one thing with Ignite where everyone's weighs the same, so there's no weight advantage. Me and you were literally, I believe, two of the lightest guys in the light class. If I look back here, I finally pulled it up. If we look at kind of our overall 2017 fall and spring stats combined, I had 11 wins, you had 13. I found the podium 22 times, you found the podium 21 times. My average finish 2.2, yours 2.4. So I mean, this is literally a very tight battle where we both go into this weekend, whether we're questioning our skill, we're questioning our friendship, whatever it may be, this is going to be a tight battle no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, it was definitely a pressure cooker for sure. And that's what made it so exciting. And that's why, like, I remember that way better than I remember so many other things I've been through, just because it felt like so much was on the line, and it was really like bring your best or don't even bother. Like the feeling I had then was similar to in 2016 when someone told me, "Oh, Kenny Wallace is going to be at the next iDrive." And I was like, "What? The Kenny Wallace?" So I was like, "All right, you better find a way to drive the best karting you've ever driven in your life."
Yeah, I go on and I mean, I'll fast forward through the story. Essentially, me and you were very close, all that day, and I ended up just being the guy that happened to won two races and finish second and one, while you finished second and two and won the last race. So, walk me through what the emotions were like for you, going into that last race, knowing that, I would have had to have finished whatever we thought fourth or worst, and you had to win the race to be able to secure the championship. What were the thoughts going into that race, and what were the thoughts after the checkered flag flew and you had kind of realized that you lost out for the second year in the row?
So going to that last race, I that's where the pressure started to override the fun a little bit, because there was already this issue where I was confused on how the lineup was going to be, and I thought Bobby was supposed to start further back than he ended up starting. So I'm like, oh my god, he's right here, and I knew I had to beat him by a certain amount of points, and I was talking to people like in between, like, can you help me? Like, can we like get some sort of alliance to give Bobby a worse start? Things I'm not exactly proud of, but it was just like the moment was it felt so big that I was like, maybe I gotta kind of be a dick a little bit if I want to have a chance at it. Meanwhile, from what I remember, you were like very much the opposite. It probably helped that you were in like the driver's seat with you had the points lead already going to the last race. But
Well, yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I also had alliances too. Like, I also had the conversation of like, hey, if he does something here, make sure you do you do something back. Like, if I'm gonna go to the back of the field, put him back there with me so I have the final say, kind of thing.
yeah, because yeah, we just wanted a cart, man. We just wanted to have a go kart. Come on, give us a go kart, please, for free.
I mean,
Uh,
that's such a legitimately a big deal, though. I mean, for us rental guys to get a chance to race with these Ignite guys and get that opportunity, from being able to prove ourselves in rental cart, that's something that, we really don't get much. I mean, there's not many other places that you can go and get that kind of opportunity.
yeah, it's really one of a kind. Uh, but that race, the actual content of that race when the flag flew, and I don't know how many times we passed each other. I don't think there was a lap or like a straightaway or a curve where we weren't side by side. I swear there was no getting away from you and there was no getting away from me. There, man, just the closest but cleanest through the whole thing, of all the racing I've ever done. Like to this day, still nothing's compared to the thrill of being in that race. And I really felt like everything was riding on that, because neither of us really come from money. So I didn't even, I had never ran the numbers. I didn't know if it was even possible for me to do my own racing if I wasn't able to snag that cart that day. But at the same time, I was like, I know Bobby's in the same boat. And I mean, him winning is still an amazing thing. And whenever we were getting to the closing laps of that race, I kind of just accepted like he needs to finish third or worse, and it's not going to happen. One of us is going to win, the other one's going to be second. There's no separating us right now, and I'm not about to wreck him to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So as the laps wound down at the end, I'm like, I can at least try to win this race, but I think he's got the championship, and that's that's fine. Like maybe I'll find my way. So just finish out the race. I don't even remember how I sealed the deal in the end, but got the win. And honestly, I had done all I could do that day. I didn't leave any regret for any of. I think I brought everything I could have possibly brought. There was no way I could have driven it any better, and that was just the way things played out. And it is actually such a fortunate thing. If I had won that, I I don't even want to think about where your career would be right now. I think you've made so much out of that one day that whatever I would have done with it wouldn't have even compared. And I'm very glad you ended up getting the best of me that day.
And it's even crazy that you mentioned that. I wasn't even thinking about going there. But I mean, I definitely had plans of being like, and I'm in college at this point. I'm a freshman in college, or I guess at this point I'm a sophomore. Anyways, I'm early on in my years in college, and I told myself like I've already. And this is crazy to think about now, but I was like, I've already spent a lot of money in this. Spending my $60 a weekend to go race I drive, and I've got college loans out. I can't afford to continue in this path, and so I was fully prepared to say I'm not doing this again next year. Granted, how the racing spirit and the competitive side of it goes. I would have definitely found a way to draw myself to come back out that following year. And to be fair, looking at the competition level, probably would have been able to seal the deal the following year. But yeah, I don't. The whole deal, the whole set of dominoes falling over, begins with that day. Begins with that opportunity to race in the Margay Ignite series for the following year. And fortunately, you were able to fund your way in independently to be able to join me. So it's not like, one guy moved on, the other guy was stuck or didn't get the opportunity to continue on. We both were able to join forces and go Ignite racing together that following year. And that's kind of what I want to get into is, what, and the other thing, the weird thing is me and you are two different spectrums of people that race Ignite. I am a very unique situation where, I had that first year in a kart, and then I was fortunate enough to get a partnership lined up with Margay where I produced video content for them, and they owned all my equipment. They owned my karts. And because of that, they were able to sell off my karts, get a new kart every year built for me. So every year I'm starting on a fresh chassis. And you, on the other hand, you represent the literal, working out of the back of the car. You purchased a used chassis with a used motor. And so you are literally taking this at the lowest budget possible, where I've got all these resources, and I can say all day long that, I worked hard for it and all this stuff, but I literally had an advantage over guys like you, guys that are just the hardworking, that have to pay their way into it. And I think that aspect of not having fresh equipment, not having the connections with people to properly teach you how to work on it, it affected your transition. It affected your success level, if you will, going into Ignite. Talk to me through your years racing Ignite and kind of your entry into it, what you experienced throughout it. Just talk on that for me.
First, I wanted to say that I'm pretty sure if things had been the other way, I think you've got a hardworking spirit about you. You would have definitely been able to put forth every ounce of effort that I ended up having to put in. So I don't want anyone out there to think like, oh, like he needed, like Bobby needed to have all this done for him, or else he wasn't going to have a chance. I think if you were working out of the back of your car, you would have done all the same things that you went on to do. And I can't stress that enough. And that's what I really believe. But there is certainly, it is very much a different experience whenever you are having to do it completely on your own. Because if you just decide that it's done, then that's it. It's completely up to you whether you even show up to the track. And later on, that ended up being like a big factor, and I never thought it would be. But as far as at the start, I was super excited. Obviously, I had never done any sort of competition in my own equipment. It was all like rentals, and you gotta worry about, am I in a good cart, bad cart, whatever. It was all my own stuff, and there is a certain pride of like, this is mine, I've touched it.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, I have never ever to this day even had any desire to like work on a cart or anything mechanical. I like driving, I like racing, I like competing. I don't want to know what goes on in the engine. I don't want to know what goes on in the axle. Like, that was such a massive, massive learning curve. I didn't know the first thing about anything mechanically speaking. And I buy this used cart, and there were people, I will say, there were people around the Cartplex that really did try to teach idiot 2018 Brenden how to work on his cart. It was never going to happen. I needed time. I needed way, way, way more time than I had to figure out everything I needed to. And the first season really shows that. I think if you look at any results that are there, you probably don't have them in front of you, and they're nothing to look at anyway. I languished around at the back of the pack. The first year, I was pretty much dead last or second to last the whole time, and I did learn a little bit on my own and was taught a little bit from others. But going into 2019 was almost completely the same as 2018, with the exception of I had a brand new cart. And like that was a big thing on its own, because I bought the used cart for 2018, but then it's like, well, I trust the guy that I bought it from, but I have no clue how to tell if this is good quality or not. I don't know what I'm looking for to like make sure this is up to snuff.
Right.
So it was almost like 2018 never even needed to happen. I didn't really gain anything from it. I didn't know if there was an issue with the cart, like if there was an issue with me. I had nothing to go off of. I learned a little bit about how carts work, but I could have learned that anytime. So yeah, 2019 was almost it was essentially just I'm starting, but again, and more recently.
I think there's something to be said, though, about learning on a used chassis. Because if you do make the mistakes, like the rookie mistakes, whether it's mechanically or as a driver, it's a lot better to wreck up or, mess up a used cart versus a new cart. But as you said, you don't really know. You can't, there's a baseline there of like, how good do I do in a perfect go-kart? And then take that perfect cart baseline and compare it to what I'm doing now in a used cart and see how much of that speed lost is in the cart versus you as the driver. And that's a very complicated thing to understand in Ignite. But what was that new cart like? What did you able to take away from that 2019 season?
The new cart, what it did more for me than anything else, first of all, I think it told me that there wasn't very much wrong with the cart I already had, which was good to know. I think the thing that it did that was very important is it helped me develop a process for learning what I needed to do to the cart to make it faster. Even though I don't enjoy that kind of thing, I did realize it as kind of incredibly, completely freaking necessary for
Mm-hmm.
doing any sort of racing. So I'm like, all right, the cart is perfect. There's nothing wrong with the cart. I need to focus on what I'm doing with the wheel, focus what I'm doing on maintenance, and then after I get some results, I can look and see which one of those needs addressed. And there were so many nights after races through 2019 and through 2020 where I would do bad in a race, and I'd immediately like go to my room and just go on the phone like, all right, I'm having this issue, and like Google it, like how do I fix this, how do I fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And just like it felt like this never ending cycle of it, like no matter how much I learned and no matter how much advice I was given to people, given by people at Carplex, and like from good friends and from people that knew what they were talking about, none of it ever made a difference. It was wild. I had at the end of all that, 2018, 2019, 2020, I had like a fourth place finish or something like that at Ignite.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still having the exact same problems I've been having from the very beginning. I felt like I hadn't moved at all. And what that really did to me emotionally, like I didn't really want to show up anymore, because there's still like that feeling of, oh, next time I think I've got it figured out this time. Next time I go to the track, I'm going to be confident, and I'm going to give it my all, and maybe I've got it this time.
Mm-hmm.
But I did that like, what do we run, like 12 races a year?
Right. Yeah.
I did that like 36 times and felt like I was just wasting my time. And quite frankly, I didn't feel like I belonged there. Uh, Whenever I was fresh out of iDrive, I had that confidence of being dominant and feeling like I could really trust in myself and my abilities, and that other people could see that I had those abilities. But then I went through 36 races in a row just feeling like a complete idiot. So I went from, oh, I think I'll get a win in like my first three races or something, to I don't know if I can ever do any racing if I can't even make it through here. I mean, this is, I've got to be able to do something here, right?
Yeah, and it's crazy to me because I have a completely different perspective from that, right? I mean, I through all of this, you had, you come out of iDrive, you finish runner up, you buy a cart. And so the word goes around that there's a new up and coming driver out of iDrive that is very talented, very fast, and he's coming into Ignite, so you better watch out. And so you have your first year, okay, it's his rookie year, give him a break. Okay, we go into year 2, he's still not showing the proper signs. What is his problem? And people start losing faith in a driver. And, as, obviously a friend of yours, a competitor that I completely witnessed, what you are capable of. I think I'm one of, and I hate to say this, but there's a lot of people that lost faith in you. And I can say confidently that throughout all of this, that I still believe in your driving ability. I've talked to many people on the show. You start out as a kid, you do racing video games, which you've done a tremendous amount of. You watch the races, you understand racecraft, you understand racing, and you proved all of that to me in the time that we raced in iDrive. And so I never once lost faith in you, whereas there was a lot of people that did. And so I'm going through my season 2018, 2019, 2020, the 3 years that I ran, same years that you ran. And to me, I'm consistently kind of getting better, right? First year I go out, get 2 podiums. Next year I go out, get 4 podiums. Next time I go out, I podium in every single race that's not dropped and win the championship. And this entire time, I'm still watching you consistently have this struggle. And for me, it was a moment of, I'd get off the track, celebrate, obviously, talk to the camera, and then sober up and realize, okay, time to go to reality. What's going on? Where did my friends stack up, and I'm looking for you, and I'm looking for Austin Russell, I'm looking for Scott McClendon when he was racing with us. And then I would look at your results, and you'd have good races and bad races, and it would definitely, it affected me. And I was like, I would try to help you out as much as possible. You share things with me, and while I may early on didn't really have full understanding of the karting maintenance and setup stuff, it was definitely a moment of me to try to help you out as much as I possibly could. And it was definitely tough for me to witness all of that went on. Now, before we move on to kind of why you decided to move on from Ignite and move on to the Supercomp stuff, I want to talk about 2 events in the Ignite series that you did that I think were really fun, whether if the on-track action or not. And I said 2 events, but it's actually 3 events, 2 being the same event. Those events that I think were very positive as far as, our friendship and being able to do stuff together, but I think that they may not have that same value as far as the competitive aspect of it. One of the things that the Ignite series does is it travels to these pretty cool destination venues, and you decided that you want to go to Daytona. And as a NASCAR fan yourself, as previously mentioned in the early podcast episode, this is a very important race for you to race. Talk about how cool it was to be able to, drive and race competitively on the grounds at Daytona International Speedway.
I think it was so cool that there was no way I was ever going to properly soak it in. That is the level. And I feel like everyone kind of has that experience where they're like, I'm trying my best to like make this feel as impactful as I know it is, but it's just so massive in scope that I just can't get my arms around it. And that was like just a thought that shot through my head like every other minute whenever I was down there at Daytona for the first time. That it was such a big deal for me. And weirdly enough, I think it might have been more through the video games of me playing NASCAR than the actual watching of the races,
Hmm.
because I remember what I kept doing whenever we were on our way there, because we all you came with me and my dad and my sisters whenever we went down there for the first time, and I kept picturing like how it looked in the games, like how the track looked in the games, and not so much like remembering races that actually happened like Daytona 500s and stuff, but just being like, oh man, I'm finally going to be at this place that I've done so many races on, and like I've had so much fun at throughout the years. And like whenever I got to the track for the first time, like saw it, I could hear like NASCAR heat from the PS1 in my mind. Like, oh god, the music's going through me, and I'm seeing it for the first time. It's here, it's in front of me. I could taste it. I could slap it with my hand. It was just such a. It's hard to describe just the connection. I guess I don't really understand it too well, why I have such a connection to Daytona. I guess it's just so much time spent there virtually, and so many just good times, and honestly like stuff like Dale Jr.'s win after his dad died, or I remember watching Jeff Gordon win the 500 in 2005, I think it was. And I do have a lot of memories of actually watching stuff on TV. So I think it all just came together. And I was ready for the challenge. I didn't know if I was going to have any competitive speed going to the kart track that they have there in turns 3 and 4, but I knew that whatever happened, I was going to be giving every ounce of energy and effort I had to give myself a chance, because it's like you don't have another chance to have your first race at Daytona. Like this is something you're going to remember forever. So win or lose, you don't leave a damn thing up to doubt. You just make sure you can leave the place with no regrets. That's how I think you win your first race at Daytona. It's not by winning on the track, it's by not regretting anything you did.
Dude, I'm that event for me was also my first time going to Daytona. And we drove throughout the entire day to get to Daytona, and it was like just past midnight when we got there. And I think the feeling that you're describing, and I think I felt it too, was like, oh my God, this place actually exists. Like
Yes.
it's a place on earth that we can visit. Like we're so used to seeing it in these video games and on TV that it's like this magical place. It's like seeing a TV set. You know, if you really like your favorite TV show that you've watched for years and years, and you're able to go on set and actually see like the refrigerator or the couch that all the people sit on. This is what it's like going up to Daytona. It's like this is this magical place. I think that kind of also was my practice for kind of getting the gig with Margay to film, because I was there filming you. You know, it was cool to, I was there not as a racer. I've never raced a Daytona Ignite race, but I've been there to do media twice, and to be able to share that event with you and help kind of document your side of the world on that was really special to me. And I think it was cool to kind of not only do the media stuff, but be kind of a mechanic and help you push the cart to the grid and get your cart off the stand. Like to have that extra level of support for you throughout the weekend, I think meant more to me than to be able to actually race. I kind of felt like I was giving back in a sense to, give you an opportunity that I've kind of been given, and to be able to share that experience with you was, that's probably one of my favorite memories that I have from karting.
It was such an honor to have you with me. Not only like does it give me all these videos and things that I can look back on and remember this like once in a lifetime opportunity that I had, but just having your support through all of that, even though there was a lot of points where on the competitive side things weren't looking very good, you absolutely had my back so convincingly. I felt like, and that's another thing from what we were talking about earlier. I don't know how you had any faith in me at any point while I was still doing Ignite. I don't know how I earned that from you. I can forgive anyone that counted me out after 2018, 2019, because I was starting to count myself out too. But you were like crew chief. I couldn't have possibly like imagined a better one. You wanted to do meetings in the hotel lobby where we go over video and we talk about strategy, and like not even were you an amazing crew chief, but just like it was so fun to have you along, and it meant so much. Like I remember whenever I did my section when we were driving out to Daytona, and we just talked for like it was probably the first time we had nothing to do but talk like ever
Hmm.
in our friendship. And I think we went for like my entire stint behind the wheel, like 3 hours or so. I don't know if there was ever a gap in silence. We just had this incredible like deep talk. Kind of forgot that there were other people in the car,
Yeah.
and like that was just about as special as the entire rest of the trip, just getting to have that.
But I do want to mention one more thing before we move on about that Daytona trip, and you highlighted it, but you didn't get to the real nitty gritty meaty part of the subject. We had those meetings in that hotel, but do you remember that awesome like annex upstairs area that we did it, and that lemon water that we were drinking? Like I was just talking to somebody about that the other day. I was like, that was like one of my favorite hotel lobbies I think I've ever stayed at, and it's just a Quality Inn. Like it's literally Quality Inn, Daytona Speedway, right off I-95 there. Like it was so freaking cool. It was just like I remember those nights of sitting back and watching those GoPro videos with you. That was like it was so fun.
That's they're timeless memories. I don't know if I wanted you to like advertise for them because now they might be fully booked next time we need them, but also I don't want them to go out of business because people don't go there. So I guess it's okay. And yes, I love the lemon water. I want it right now. Damn it, now I'm thirsty.
So this podcast is gonna be out way after this, but I'm supposed to be going down to Daytona for the 24 hours for a work obligation, and I will make sure that I stop at that Quality Inn and get you a bottle of lemon water and bring it back for you.
Oh my
As long
God,
as
could you?
as
Oh,
long as
dude.
TSA doesn't take it from me, but they just might. They probably will, and I'll be
Mm.
like, "Listen, I got this lemon water from Florida, and I got to get it back home to St. Louis." And they'll look at me like I'm absolutely out of my mind.
You have two options here. They have, I think, a fluid limit. If it's under a certain amount of ounces, you can do it. Option two, how hard can you throw?
Not that hard,
I'll just look in the
unfortunately.
sky on the day you're supposed to be getting back, and I'll wait for something to drop. And if I get some lemon water or some bird shit, it could be either one.
So one more Ignite event I want to talk about before we move on is Miami, and we kind of had switched roles. I ended up racing for that event. You ended up being the video guy. You were fortunate enough to give up your chassis for me to race that event too. I ended up using your chassis and Austin Russell's bodywork and made a collaboration of a go-kart to basically last minute run the final round of the Scusa Winter Series up at Homestead Miami Speedway. And that was a really fun time. What do you remember about that event? I remember just, I went out and I gave it all I could on the track and had some fun battles, but I think I really treasure most just the hanging out aspect and just chilling in Florida with you for that weekend.
Dude, that weekend was like the talk that we had on the way to Daytona, but like 4 days long.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I honestly feel like that might have been whenever I look back on them, that feels like it was such a bigger event. Now that might have been because the other time when we went to Daytona, had my dad there, had my sisters there, it was still kind of familiar. That was my first trip ever where it was just like I'm on my own and I'm with my friend. There's no leash, like there's no safety rails or anything, like anything could happen, and it that's probably why it sticks out so much in my mind. I kind of felt like I was your. There are certain points where I felt like I was just being your dad, and like making sure you didn't get us into trouble on the Miami Strip. That was that was probably like the greatest trip I've ever taken, and I remember, uh, I you know what, that trip, the karting felt like it was, and I don't know how. how you picture this, but the experience of just being down there and being on our own like that, I felt like the karting was almost like secondary, like an excuse, like, yeah, I gotta go do this race, but what's the beach look like, huh?
Dude, you took the thought right out of my head. That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it was like I have always been interested in visiting Miami, but this just seemed like a perfect excuse to kind of go down there and do that. And like my favorite memories of that, of course, I had a really fun battle with Travis Milburn and Rockwell Seacrest in that first race that I always will, remember. And the track at Miami is just so unique. It's flat. It's basically what they would call like a parking lot track. And the curbs there were so treacherous, right? So I do remember things of that race, but what I remember most is like us playing catch on the beach the day before we flew out, because we stayed that last day. We flew out late. I think it was like a Monday. We flew out late that day. So we spent like the first part of the day just walking up and down the beach, and we both had baseball gloves, and we just played catch on the beach. And then obviously all the post race going down, and we walk around the beach, and then we would go to dinner. And of course we had some crazy meals down there, dude. I mean, we have a whole podcast on just the food aspect of it. I mean, our diets that weekend were just out the freaking window.
It was not great. Oh my
I
God.
mean,
I think my wallet's still feeling the effects
oh
of
God.
2020 Miami.
But
Uh,
dude, it was the time of my life. I mean, and that's where I found my love for
Me?
Corona beer.
Oh.
No, oh dude, no, sorry. I I will not admit that on the podcast, but I will admit my love for Corona and lime. That's where I found it, and it was just such a chill experience. I mean, you'd go through the race day, and that's the beautiful thing too. I didn't really have any incidents on the track where I ran into any problems with the driver. I just kind of, for the most part, it felt like I just ran my own race, competing against myself. And, I didn't finish last and I didn't win. So it was kind of just an average feeling from the racing, which I think was also another reason to kind of make it feel secondary on everything else. But, like I said, just the experience of going out to eat at those places and walk up and down the beachfront and just hang out with you and just chill. I think that's what made that event really special to me.
There was like a tinge of responsibility to it, at least from my side of it, because and I guess I kind of steered the conversation away from how it started, but you like did all these things for me when we went to Daytona, and you had my back. You're my crew chief, my cameraman. You did everything, and then the roles were kind of reversed whenever we went to Miami. Uh, sure, you had my chassis, but you were the driver, and you were the one that really needed the focus. And it was my job, I felt, to try and repay what you had done for me. And I tried to do that as much as I could. I couldn't be a crew chief as much as I really wanted to, and that was the part that I wanted to really pay back the most, because I wanted to have some sort of tangible effect on your results out on the track. Uh, but once we got into the Margay tent for the very first time, when we got down there, and Mark Schwiggin showed up and you guys started to have your dynamic, it was immediately way too tense and way too fast for me to even stand a chance. So I just stood back like, I got the camera. You let me know when you need me.
Well, and that whole deal was crazy in itself because, it was like a practice day and I didn't even plan on doing it. And fortunately, and it was pretty expensive to do it too. I mean, you're running with SCUSA, and SCUSA is not, the cheapest organization to go race with. Fortunately, Brenden Moore and Jimmy Miller helped cover the cost of that practice day for me, and I can't thank them enough for that. And then I get into the tent, and Schwagen and Kennedy are like thrashing on that cart, and Schwagen's like, "You're going out in like 10 minutes." And so it was, I mean, you can see it in the vlog too. That vlog was really fun. I love going back and watching it because it was that whole event, I think, was like super, super cool to do. And just such a collaboration of a lot of good friends. Like I'd already mentioned, you and Austin giving me the resources to put a cart together, and Schwagen, Kennedy, Brenden Moore, Jimmy Miller, Matt Kretschel, just all these cool guys that came together to help me give the video guy the opportunity to go race one of these big events that I wouldn't otherwise be able to go do. And so, yeah, I mean, it was like hitting the track running when we first got there. But no, and the thing is, like, for me is like one of the things that I think you just kind of being, open to that or exposed to that atmosphere of how high speed Schwagen and, all the guys that were thrashing on that cart to be able to kind of, learn a little bit from that as well. You weren't really exposed to that kind of level of wrenching on a cart and maintenance during a weekend and all that stuff. So I think that kind of also was an attempt to try and help you out when you got back to Gateway. And it also gave you an excuse to have a cart rebuilt essentially in the off season between Gateway seasons. So it was a really cool collaboration between me and you to, you were able to take some benefit out of Miami. I was able to take some benefit out of Miami. And then just overall, it was a really fun trip.
It's a really good feeling that it was such a group effort. There are a lot of dudes that we have made connections with just through karting that they will give you so much. They will give you everything just because they want to see what you can do. They're just curious and they want to help, and there's a decently big part of the community that is just guys that and it helps that we're not racing for money, sure, but there's the guys that'll do anything for you, and they really want to help and make everyone that goes out on the track the best they can be, and I'm sure that's where it came from with Schwigan and Kennedy. They're working on your cart when we got there. It was a level of intensity. They really wanted to. They sure as hell didn't want you let you down. They wanted to, like, even if you felt like you were there just to kind of do this little trip and see Miami, they were there to get the 51. Was it even the 51?
Yeah, it was 51. We changed the number, I believe.
Yeah, to get the 51 on the podium or get the 51 to win. They were there to get everything competitively out of you that they could. And it was a little jarring because I'm pretty sure we were like, yeah, we're just going to stop by and then we're just going to, maybe we'll check out the beach a little bit. No, we're in this thing. We're going to be here for a few hours. Just don't get swept up in all the hammer swinging or whatever was going on.
Yeah, it was very intense to get thrown into, but you said some things in there that I think make a good segue. We fast forward to last year and you raced a partial Ignite season and decided to switch over from Ignite to Super Comp. What was the cause? What was the reasoning to kind of move on from Ignite? Did you feel like that you'd kind of run your course through that and you wanted to try something new and try your luck at something else? What was that process? What brought that along, and what have you found from that?
I think I left Ignite not feeling like I had run any course. I felt like I had done nothing. It was kind of desperation attempt, honestly, to try to find some way to feel like racing again, because 2018 through 2020, absolutely nothing. I felt like I didn't learn anything. I did learn enough to where I could maintain my own cart on my own, and I did not think I would have this. I do have some level of pride now in what I'm able to do to keep a cart working properly. But going into 2021, I did another event at Daytona first, before the season even started, because I wanted to test out some things I learned about the rear track width and like just kind of weird niche, like just weird ideas that I was like, well, maybe this will give me some speed. And went down to Daytona on my own. It was a terrifying experience, but I survived. And I had an even worse showing than I did the first time I went down, like 3 years earlier, which felt especially bad. Like, I'm worse than I started. How is that even possible? So started Ignite, and I was still playing around with the same kind of ideas. And I think I showed a little bit better speed than before, but it was like, wow, that's all I've got to show for it. All right. I was still working. I was still trying to stick to what I was learning through Google and stuff. I was learning different race theory things about the physics of carts, and I still wanted to test them because if I can't race here, I have no future in racing. Got to figure this shit out now. So one thing that I was really leaning into was this article I saw on a website called A Paradigm Shift Karting. And it was talking about how go-karts are supposed to be driven as three-wheeled vehicles, which was something I didn't really understand. It is like, what? So, and something I hadn't heard anyone else say, but the way that it was worded in the article, it felt pretty important. So the whole idea was just like, hey, whenever you turn, the tire on the inside and the tire on the outside are going to spin the same amount because they're connected. There's no like differential in the axle. They're connected. They're going to do the exact same thing. And the one on the inside of the curb is going to be turning slower. So what you got to do is get that thing off the ground, or at least take the weight off of it. And I couldn't figure out how to do that with how the Ignite carts are set up. Something about just the speeds we run and the way that all of our layouts are, and just the way that hard tires are, I couldn't get the weight off of it. I felt like I was driving a tight cart 3 years in a row going on 4. So I looked at Super Comp and I just was like, well, they're going faster. They've got soft tires. Maybe something about that will fix this issue I've been having. Maybe the higher speeds will get that thing in the air. All right, let's try it. So it was a complete Hail Mary desperation. Please show that I can drive a cart, anything. I went out the very first session. It felt like I did awful. And I was the exact same amount off pace that I had been when I felt at my best at Ignite. First session, like, I can't even find words for it. I felt like such an idiot for so long. And then just like minimal effort, just like warming up the tires. And I was where I had been after 3.5 years of trying my hardest. So that entire first race weekend I had with Super Comp, it was just the biggest relief I've ever had in my life. I went out and I don't think I podiumed, but I was competitive, and I actually had like a photo finish where I just missed the podium. And I was like maybe like a tenth or two off of the best times that everyone was running. This was stuff that was never possible before. And just the simple change of going from the hard tires to the soft, it it just worked, and I never looked back.
Yeah, and I would, the thing is with Ignite versus Super Comp, there's definitely a lot more people racing Ignite, but the competition level, like you've got to make a Margay cart better than potential other competitors' carts. And the competition level, like still some of the competitive guys that are racing in Ignite also race in Super Comp. Like I think back to 2020, the second place finisher in Ignite, Trevor Egemeyer, is the guy that's consistently the champion in Super Comp. So the competition level is present there in Super Comp, and I would say that extra level of a completely different cart manufacturer potentially stepping in, it opens the door for a lot more competition to step in. So to be able to go into Super Comp and get and go on to get that win, what did that feel? I mean, to feel what I did at Whiteland when I won my first Ignite race, and throughout that journey I was able to step on the podium a little bit here and there and see progress. For you to struggle for so long and not see that same amount of progress, and then get into Super Comp and then relatively quickly find that kind of progress and that kind of speed, and to be able to succeed, how the weight off your shoulders, how did that feel?
Bobby, I am right now looking at the back panel of each of your carts that you had in those first 3 years that I did Ignite. You and I might have mentioned it before. You don't know how many times I thought about watching that 51 get smaller and smaller in front of me every single time we were on the track. Didn't matter if it was a test, a practice, or like a race. It didn't matter. It felt like winning, or even not even winning, just being uh, as good as you are. It didn't feel at a certain point like it was even possible. I felt like at some point along the way, things just got out of my control, and it was never going to happen. I kind of resigned myself in some ways. I don't know. I don't know why I was still trying, but I was still trying in 2021 for some reason, and I'm so glad that I stuck with it through all that. Like I physically, I couldn't even picture what it would look like for me to even be in front of the pack, not even winning the race, just
Mm-hmm.
leading laps. It was like it just looked silly in my head, and and just the thought of seeing myself go across the line with a checkered flag in front of me and there's no one in front of me, it just like get out of here. It's I want it to happen more than anything in the world. It is the number one thing that I want, but I know it's not going to happen, and that's what I felt like right before I made the move to Super Comp. That's the kind of desperation I was in this short amount of time. Just my was it my second? Oh my god, my memory's so busted. Was it the second or the third? I think it was no, the second race weekend I went out for Super Comp. I got a podium, and I had never gotten a podium in Ignite in my life, so that was big. And I think I might have led some laps in that one as well, and I had never led a single lap in Ignite either. It was two firsts at the same time. And then the third time I went out to run Super Comp, it was actually the first half of the day and the second half of the day were very different, because the first half of the day was like positive optimism, like maybe I can do it this time, maybe this thing that I thought was impossible, maybe I can actually do it. And I went out and had good sessions, and I had like the best speed of everyone. I was like, this is it, this is the day. And I had a bad qualifying session going into the first race. So I had to, no, I did. You know what? I don't know if I had a bad qualifying session. I think I just had a bad restart because I'm an idiot and I do everything that Jeff Gordon does. So of course I have to have bad restarts. So I had a bad start to the race and I picked my way up. I was really biding my time. I knew I was faster than everyone, but I didn't want to make a dumb move that jeopardized it. I knew if I just kept my cart clean, I was going to win that race. And got up to Emily Ellsworth. She was leading and just followed her for a couple laps. There was one lap, went into turn one for the regular layout. And I poked inside, thought like, nah, it looks like she doesn't see me. So I'm going to go back in behind her. And I think I had slowed down a little bit when I was making that maneuver. It was slowing me down enough for Zach Buchanan to get to my right side, and we hooked together, and he went to the wall and he bit something and he was out, and I almost hit the wall. Somehow I saved it, but I was out of contention. There was not enough time left. I had my first win in my hands and pissed it away. And the second half of the day, up until the end of that second race, I was pissed. I should not have been. I should not have been as mad at Zach as I was, because looking back at the footage, like I kind of look like an idiot. I kind of look like I just cut him off, but I had no clue he was there, and he had no clue that the gap was going to close like that. Like even before that first race was over, I was like flipping off the person that I thought that did it, and I was just like, I all this time, and I had it, and I'm still acting like an idiot. Like it was reinforcing all the things that I had been thinking about myself before, was like, you're being stupid, you're not able to do it because there's something wrong with you. But I looked at the times after the race, and I looked at all the sessions that we already had. I was like, I'm the fastest guy here still. I can't let this happen again. We have one more race. I'm not going to let this opportunity pass me by. If something happens and I come back the next time we race and I don't have this speed again and it just never comes back, I'm going to be so regretful that I just left this big question mark because I wasn't able to do it today. And I remember sending you a message because you were watching, you were off somewhere doing, I think you were doing work for Skip Barber.
Yep.
And you were like still keeping an eye on the races, and you had seen what had happened. And I was like, don't worry about it. I let that one go. But here's what's going to happen. I'm going to jump the start on the start of the second race, because I felt like whoever was leading the field in the first race jumped the start. So I'm like, well, if they're going to get away with it, so am I. I'm jumping the start.
Mm-hmm.
I'm leading every single lap, and I'm going to win this race. So you just watch that happen. And nothing was going to get in the way of that. I got on the pole for qualifying. I was determined to get that done and not be a factor. And I went out. I don't even know if I jumped the start. I just finally had a good start, and I literally just drove away from them. I went out and just turned practice laps, and I ended up winning by like a little over 2 seconds. And all it it wasn't all at once because the adrenaline of the race had to wear off. I was pumping my fists and everything on the track, but the engine turns off. I get out of my cart, I push it through scale, and just the weight of everything that had come to pass in the 3.5 years beforehand, and even before then, oh my God, I'm kind of losing it right now thinking about it. I just started falling apart. Uh, I really didn't think that I was even a racer at a lot of points. I didn't think I deserved to be out there with people like you and all of our other friends. I can't ever say what that moment meant to me.
Oh, I'm sure, man. I mean, it was crazy for me. I touchdown, and I don't remember where we were going. I don't remember what airport, but it was for an event at Lime Rock. And so I'm in a car with 3 or 4 Skip Barber instructors, and I'm watching the race live on live timing. And I'm just so disappointed I wasn't there for it in person. But man, I was like screaming at my phone and like cheering, and of course race monitor, right? You only see when you cross the line, so you're like leading with the last lap to go, and you got a pretty good advantage on everybody. And I'm like, for the love of God, if he comes around and doesn't win this race, I'm gonna give him so much shit for it. But dude, you came across the line and you won, and I'm like screaming in the car, and everyone in the car thinks I'm a lunatic because they have no idea the intensity of what just happened. And dude, I got on the phone and was texting you and in all caps and just going insanely crazy over it, man. That was just, it was such a big moment, man. And like that feeling that you felt, and just with everything else that you see potential in now in the karting world, you're gonna hit it full time next year, right? You're gonna be going for that full Super Comp series and trying to find some more wins, right?
You did a fantastic job of letting me get my shit together.
I can't wait to title this video "Brenden Lauer Cries" live on the ATA Network podcast.
You are one slick son of a bitch. I will give you that. That was a fantastic job. I thought I was going to be doing that. I ended the season of Super Comp this year like, all right. I feel like I'm competitive again, and using that exact point to jump off of. I guess next year I'll run the thing full time because I actually missed. There's 12 races in all in 6 weekends. I only went to 4 weekends and ran. I ran 8 races of that, which was like the bare minimum to do the points. Like I think you could drop 4 races, so I couldn't miss any races, and every single one of them that I did ended up counting toward final points, and I still ended up like 4th. So I was like, all right, I've clearly got the skill to compete here. Maybe I should just do another year of it. Then the off season hit, and I think a lot of our friends even will tell you, and maybe you felt it as well, how sobering it is whenever you're away from the track and you don't have to think about it for months, and it's just back to business as usual. Because I realized I could compete, I could win. I could probably end up winning the championship. I think there's a fantastic uh, chance that if I went and ran 2022 Super Comp, I'd probably be first or second at the end of the year. I could probably win that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about competing. It's not just about being somewhere where you can race and get a win, I guess is what I am trying to say. There's a certain satisfaction whenever the scenario is a certain way. Over the off season, I started to realize that whether it was Ignite or Super Comp, for me specifically, the satisfaction wasn't really there. There's something about the difference between being in a cart that you can do a bunch of things to, or being in any vehicle where you can make all these crazy changes to, and like you don't know what certain people have on their machine and how they're doing it, and it adds all these variables that kind of, in my mind, it actually interferes with the competition as it pertains to driver versus driver.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I decided, and I don't think I'm going to do full season, but I think I'm still going to do some super comp races. The jury's still out. I don't know. But I think when I made the decision that I wasn't going to run full-time super comp was when I thought about what it feels like whenever you get out of the cart. I think, and of course, like with iDrive, there's like, oh, did I have a good cart or a bad cart, whatever. But like a lot of the times they're so even that it's really negligible. It's pretty much like racing on equal terms. And there was a feeling I got whenever I would get out of an iDrive cart, like you get out of the cart when it's over, and you look in front of you at the people that beat you, and you look behind you at the people that you beat, and you think about when you were back there and what it took to get to where you are now, and how much more you have to do to get to the people in front of you, and also the admiration you have for the people that finish in front of you, and how good they are at what they do to have been able to beat you. And to certain levels, that's still present in Ignite and in Super Comp. But I started to realize that whenever I was getting out of the cart, I wasn't thinking about how bad the people were behind me or how good the people were in front of me. I would look at the people in front of me and I'd be like, oh, I wonder what you did to your cart. I look at the
Mm-hmm.
people behind me like, maybe they should start doing what I'm doing because what they're doing with their cart isn't working. So it was like, it doesn't feel like I'm having the kind of agency that I want to have, and I don't feel like I just don't really get as much out of it anymore. I don't want to have the thing that determines whether or not I am successful or whether or not I'm the best to be whether I did this or this or this in between sessions. It should all be out on the track what you did as a driver. I don't really have very many crew chief or like mechanic instincts in my body to start with. And I don't want that to be the reason I have success.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be successful because I'm a great driver, if I'm a great driver. And I really don't think committing to super comp and doing a year of that is going to leave me in a spot a year from now where I feel like that part of me is really contributing to very much.
It is such a good and interesting take with a tremendous of factual information to support it. I mean, to start out with the positives, right? Let me be Mr. Happy Man. For a series where you actually go out and purchase and maintenance your own cart, the Ignite series is just about as spec as you're going to be able to find it, right? I mean, you all are on the same tire, you all are on the same motor, you guys are all on the same chassis, but it doesn't stop, Joe Blow on the other side of the paddock from going out and getting, an engine from Comet with a Comet sticker on the side. That doesn't look suspicious at all. And there's just a lot of those little itty bitty politics. And you can still, like in my case where I had a new chassis every year, that definitely played a benefit to me compared to other guys like yourself that, may have a 2-year-old cart, a 3-year-old cart. Hell, there's even some guys out there with older cart chassis than that. And when you have different people with different knowledge, that knowledge is going to, the infamous phrase, knowledge equals speed, and if you want it to be spec as possible, stuff like that, you're missing out on speed. So I totally, and I will be completely transparent, most of the most fun races that I've had were in iDrive when, everyone was literally on the same stuff. You show up and you don't have the stress, you don't have the worries of working on the equipment, maintaining the equipment, having the right setup for that day, knowing what the gearing is. You go on the rental carts, and no matter if you run regular, backwards, extended 3, it still has the same sprocket on the back. Everyone's on the same chassis with the same front end setup, the same rear end setup. You just have to find a way to get your rental cart to the finish line first. And there's no setup, anything you have to do to it. And that's part of the reason why I'm really enjoying my time in the Skip Barber race series. It's the same, literally the exact same thing. You go up in the driver's meeting, you pull a number out of the cup, and that's the cart or car that you're racing for that day. And, maybe it's a good car, maybe it's a bad car, maybe it's, had this amount of miles, or maybe it's had this amount of miles. It's the same thing with the rental cart series. It's about as spec as it's going to be. All of them go through the same maintenance routine and everything. So, and to be able to not have to work on it and have that deal of it, I think that is the beauty of a spec series that Ignite just doesn't have the logistics to really provide. You can't have a guy that's wrenching on 200 go-karts for a major event, right? So it's a very interesting take, and I 100% agree with you. And the beautiful thing is like with racing, like, me and you, very middle class guys, we can't afford to just go out and just jump straight into cars. So we had to go the karting route. And I think that you can be a very good driver without proving yourself in Super Comp or Ignite. So, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Although you've had your struggles, we now stand in 2022. I am still a firm believer in your driving ability. And I think given the opportunity to, whatever it may be, go out and do, a champ car race or something in a car, come join me in the Skip Barber Formula Series or whatever it may end up being. I think that you returning to a proper full spec series without all of the other stuff that goes on in the karting world, I think that you would, rise back to the top again. I think that you can prove yourself as a driver and be a very successful person behind the wheel.
I appreciate that, and I really don't even know what is available as far as that goes, because my taste for what is like true spec, like what kind of racing would actually fully satisfy me, I will raise my hand and say I'm a little bit weirdly picky with that. But hopefully there is something ahead. That's the thing. I said I'm not doing full-time super comp, but I don't even know what I am doing full-time or if I'm doing anything full-time. That's the whole year's a big question mark. But I appreciate that you still have this belief in me over the years. You brought up some interesting points that I wanted to go to about Ignite, is that it really is pretty much as close to spec as you could get. And you would think, well, that's perfect for me. You can't, like, you can send your engine off to Comet or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's all the exact same stuff. Brenden, what's your problem? Well, I think if it was with that setup, but in a car, I think that would be, like, weirdly enough, the defining thing that changes it to a total yes for me. Because in karts, I think the problem that I had, I'm a very small person, and as much as that helped me in rentals, I think that hurt me at Ignite. And that's where I come from, this point of view that the actual body types that a person has, and like even the way that they move within a cart, like there's so many variables with that can also affect the racing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the core reason why I couldn't find a single setup that worked for me when I was running the hard tires. My center of gravity is just too freaking low. It was going to take way more research and effort and just to get the cart to a point where it was going to work the right way for someone of my weight and my height, and how I had to have the lead weights on the seat and everything. It just wasn't going to work out. So the idea of Ignite is fantastic, but things like that you just don't know until you've driven it for a while. Like, you go through a couple years and a bunch of money before you realize, oh shit, I never had a chance. But if I could find, like you were talking about Skip Barber, that sounds amazing. I don't know how I feel about laying down and holding a wheel as opposed to like sitting straight up. That would be cool. But the way that they have that series set up is pretty much just iDrive but bigger, and that sounds like a lot of fun to me. Maybe something along those lines is in my future. I really don't know. I did do a little bit of camera work over there, so maybe I have an in. That'd be nice.
I
Wink,
have
wink.
no idea what you're talking about.
Ah, that's awkward then. Basically, to wrap it all up, I'm weirdly picky. I am completely driver. If I could kill a crew chief, I would. They're bastards. Uh, just give me something that's exactly the same as the other guy and let us go toe to toe. And it's my philosophy, actually, that makes for the absolute best racing entertainment that money can buy. And why I think SRX is so entertaining is because they literally don't even do like setups or anything, as far as I know. They just go out in the exact same setup and race, and it's always entertaining.
Well, Brenden Lauer, that's pretty much your entire kind of karting experience to kind of catch up the viewers from that original episode. First off, I appreciate your time here kind of going through, pretty much our karting experience together up till this point. Where can people follow you? I know, you're active on YouTube. You got a lot of content that, that'd be awesome to talk about on a future episode, is kind of your content creating, because that seems to be kind of your real passion right now. Go ahead and give us your, where can we follow you on the social media to kind of keep up with what you got going on?
Oh, there's not very much to cover there. I will say that if you go to Twitter and find at the 54 car, you will find an account that will never have another tweet posted on it ever again, because I was getting out of hand and it was making me sad. So that can just be like a permanent internet archive of what it was like for me to be on Twitter from 2016 to 2020. And that'll just be that. I guess I went to 2021, but either way. Where you can find me, however, is the 54 car YouTube channel. And that is like the best thing I've got going for me right now. It is very good to know that if things don't work out in racing, somehow through a complete miracle, I've found some traction on YouTube after doing poopy little videos for years on an old channel, and then like starting this channel, putting out more poopy videos. It's nice that at some point I found a stride, and I found some people that are kind enough to click the subscribe button. And I don't know how we've had 700 of them do it at the time of recording. And oh my God, if it could be more than that by the time this uploads, that'd be incredible. I'm at a point where I'm making content that feels really good. I feel like I can be proud of it. And I seriously, I try to appreciate to the most I can every view, like, comment, every subscriber, everyone that is a passerby on my channel, for just giving me the opportunity to have any sort of existence on YouTube. It's something that I've been trying to do for so long, and now that I'm doing it, I'm like, well, now what? What do I do with all these people? They're looking at me. They're looking at their sub feed, and they're like, he hasn't uploaded in 2 months. It's just racing games, you idiot.
Oh man, dude. No, it's awesome to see. I'm glad you're passionate about it and kind of hitting your stride on the YouTubes. I'm a little bit jealous of the view counts that you can pull in, and huge congratulations on 700. And once again, thanks for coming on the show, Brenden. And I want to thank all of you guys for tuning into this show. If you're not already following us on those podcast platforms, go ahead and do so. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and do that. All of the links to everything that we discussed, including where you can find Brenden Lauer, his YouTube channel, his Twitter archives, you can find that at our link dump at bobbykrug.com/podcast. So everything that we discuss, you'll find it there. And like I like to end all these shows with is a little bit of a plug of myself. If you want to go ahead and check out shopatanetwork.com, that's where you can find my merch store and kind of help support the show. It costs money to kind of get this podcast out there to you guys through those podcast platforms. So, and follow me on the social medias as well. You can find that on my website. So until the next show, guys, thanks for tuning in, and I will see you guys on that next one of the ATA Network podcast.